Alright guys, I just got a new laptop, Msi GT83VR. So I've had big laptops before. My original laptop, I don't know if my channel doesn't really have any followers, so I doubt that you know what I used to have, but I originally had an Alienware M18X, and I still do. That laptop was one of the first 18-inch laptops, and for me, it was the perfect machine. It was large, but it had the power, and basically, if I needed to do any type of work or play, I could basically have something as close to the desktop as I possibly could and still be in somewhat of a laptop shape form factor. So I've had that for about 5 years, and now it's time to upgrade, so I just got the GT83VR. And that one's still good. I've had to replace the motherboard in the old one, once or twice, and the graphics cards once or twice. Now it's down to one graphics card, but for just a general use laptop, it's still good. Now going on to this thing is quite different. I first heard about this MSI with the GT80, and I almost got it, but I wasn't really happy with the 980 SLI performance. It was about the same as my desktop, which is a dual 680 GTX. So I was looking at it, I'm like, yeah, it would be almost like a parallel upgrade. I'd get a laptop which is just as powerful as my desktop, which is still pretty darn good, but not really what I consider an upgrade. This thing, on the other hand, is definitely an upgrade. So we've got keyboards that are, once again, it is there for business and for gaming, and it's meant to make you forget about the fact that you're using a laptop. So that's awesome. The display is large. It is only a 1080p display, but I don't understand why people want a 4K display. I've actually seen stuff on 4K, and I've actually seen a 17-inch laptop with 4K. The text on it is so freaking small that it's just retarded. You have to go in and you have to change your let's see here. You'd have to change your display settings and go in here and basically change the font size. And Windows will let you go up to 175, but what that does is starts blurring the text, okay? And on 4K, you end up with something like this. I don't know if you can really see it, but so it's like the stock text. And if you go here, it tends to kind of blur some of the text. Like you see the Newegg business and stuff. It's kind of blurry. So it actually will mess around with your graphics as well. I know people seem to say no, that doesn't, but I'm telling you, it's never all that good. To me, I just go to 100% what they're supposed to be, and when I look at stuff, it doesn't look like it's blurry. So that actually is a one-to-one pixel type setup. And at 4K, that's so freaking tiny, it's just miserable. So I'm fine with a 1080p display. I would have liked a better refresh rate, but it's fine, okay? So without the way, let's actually go back to the machine. So we've got a whole bunch of crap that I probably won't use half of that, but I'm kind of interested about what the Saber Hi-Fi is. I might have to get some of these headphones because I've heard they're definitely the way to go. But it has two PCIe SSDs in RAID 0, and it has a 1 terabyte SSD hard drive. I'm not so sure about this RAID 0 SSD drive. It looks kind of scary, but that's the default setup, and I'm just going to leave it. But it does have two NVIDIA GTX 1080 SLIs. Now, one of the things that prompted me to get this is that this is the first time NVIDIA actually took a GTX 1080 that performs like a GTX 1080 on a desktop and crammed it in here. And I've ran 3D Mark, and I can tell you it is definitely up there. Maybe not, I would say about 90% of the performance of a GTX 1080. 90 or maybe even 95. It's not quite there because the desktop GTX, most people are going to get a one that's above reference clock, and they can probably overclock that a little more. So all said and done, it's not the fastest thing out there, but for a laptop, it's slamming. Because I'll give you an example. The GTX 980M is about the same power as a GTX 770 regular desktop. So it's like 2 generations behind. And that sucks. One 1080 is faster than a Titan X, the old Maxwell Titan X. It's faster than a Titanium 980 Ti. It's faster than any other desktop graphics card below it, and you've got two of these in there. So that's what just retarded and awesome at the same time. So definitely a lot of power in here. I'm not really all this big fan of this little touchpad / numpad. I think it's more of a gimmick than anything, but whatever. I'll take it. It does work, but I'm always going to use a separate mouse, and that's the way I am. One thing I do like about it is just the keyboard's lit. I've got an Alienware, and it lights up everywhere, and it's more annoying than anything. So I do like this, that it's lit up and just the keyboard's lit up. I hate those people that want all this crazy lighting. Not for me. It's a computer. It's designed to have a lot of graphics and CPU power. You want a bunch of glow sticks, put them around your head, go to a rave party. Seriously, just let the laptop be the laptop. Okay. So let's look around with the things that probably are not that good about this machine. And it is definitely this thing right here. So this son of a gun uses two power supplies combined into one adapter, then that goes into the laptop. And it just screams ghetto, and I'll tell you why. Okay? I have this power supply in my Alienware M18X. Okay? It is the exact same power supply. It's made by some Chinese company. It's 330 watts. Sager, MSI, Acer, Asus, I don't care who you are, they all use the same power supply from from Delta Electronics, okay? And instead of actually having them commission them to make a proper power supply, they did the ghetto BS of taking two of them, putting it together, and putting it in here. Now you'll be wondering, why the hell do you need two power supplies? Well, each GTX uses up to 175 watts. And that's what it could potentially use. These things when you're using power supplies, you lose about 10 to 15% of efficiency just by thermal loss. So if your laptop has two 175 watt laptops, and you've got, a 50 watt CPU, and then you've got other CPU components, your theoretically peak power is 500 watts of actual usage. So in order to be able to provide the laptop with 500 watts of power, let's say you lose, 10% of it, or 10% of it through thermal loss, which is still a very efficient power supply. I think it's actually worth that. So you would need to supply the laptop on 550 watts, out of that 50 would lose. But let's say worst case scenario, you lose 20% and whatever. That would mean you probably need to have 600 watts going. So this works well because these are you have a total of 660 watts of power available to it. So you won't ever have to worry about not enough power being there. But I still think if they had made a proper power supply, a 500 watt, maybe 525 watt power supply would have been enough. Now here's another crazy thing. There's a company called CyberPower PC that sells something very like this called a Fanbook, and I almost got it. Until I found out that they actually send you two 230 watt power supplies, even with their two 1080 SLI setups. And I was like, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. Well, no, within our test, we've already done it. I consider that to be BS. They're basically running their power supplies at maximum power, which is probably killing the life on those power supplies. I don't know how long they're going to last. And they only give you a year warranty, so if you wanted to get the 330 watts with the Fanbook, you got to pay an additional $400, and that was to me bunch of BS. So all things, when I started looking at what Fanbook is doing, in the end, it was just better just to go with the MSI. You get a 2-year warranty on everything. You get two actual 330 watt power supplies. I did a watt meter test. In my watt meter test, when I was running 3D Mark, I still was only drawing about 375, 380 watts. That was at the wall socket, so it could theoretically run at the 230 watt setups, but I don't know if that was really the full stress. Maybe if something was more stressful, it might even go to 450, maybe even 460 watts, and at that point, you would exceed the capacity of 230 watt power supplies. So don't get the Fanbook version of this from CyberPower PC. They're just skimping on places where they should not be skimping on. But going back to this is hella ghetto. They should have made a proper power supply that provides it with that. And this little adapter is just no freaking good. It barely is in there. Another, ghetto-ness right here. It should have been designed much better. And, the This is not a very flexible wire. It's not like some flex wire. It doesn't need to be, okay? You can easily make things that can carry. I mean, I'll give you an example. Here's a fan, okay? This wire right here is perfectly capable of running up to 800 watts, okay? You don't need something that stout going in there. In fact, this whole setup is probably the biggest drawback of this whole machine. It requires two big power supplies, and they're not, and it doesn't need to be. And the only reason MSI did this is because they didn't want to make an actual 600 watt power supply. And they'll claim, oh, it's because of classification usage. BS. I fly RC models. We've got 1500 watt power supplies. It's no big deal to make a power supply that's strong enough. MSI just wanted to use what they had, and they didn't want to invest in new technology, so they made this idiotic looking thing. And yeah, so we'll just forget about that, because the more I look at it, the more pissed off I get, to be honest. Here's the back. Nothing really crazy going on. When you do close it, I think the MSI logo turns on. Nope, never mind. It's just a silver logo. So this doesn't light up or anything. I think I don't think any of this lights up, actually. For people that are sticklers with design, this is anodized red, and this is like a regular red, so it's not exactly quite a match. I don't really care. Laptop, in terms of heaviness, not too bad. It isn't as... It's actually lighter than my Alienware, believe it or not. I think my Alienware M18 is heavier than this, so that's certainly something to keep in mind. But other than that, you've got this sort of a brushed finish, and yeah, it's there. One thing I did notice is the bevel's kind of higher here. Webcam, which I will disable because I don't want NSA spying on me. But now let's run 3D Mark on here, because that's really where, that's really what this thing is designed to do. And I don't even play modern games. All I really play is indie games. There's a game I play called Renegade X, which I highly recommend you try out. It's based off an old game that was released in 2000 with the Command & Conquer series when they first tried to do first-person shooters. But the people that played it were pretty, loyal to it, and me included. I remember playing the hell out of it, and but that was an old engine, and some of the lead developers got together and they recreated that game in the Unreal Engine 3, and it's a free game. It's actually free. It's not a pay to win or pay to play or any of that. You cannot buy anything on this game, so you cannot spend money. That's why I call it free. So check it out, Renegade X. It's a pretty badass little game. It's won a bunch of mods, and I bought this big, huge laptop to play something in Unreal Engine 3. So, yeah, go ahead and call me an idiot. I don't care. It's the game I like, and that's really the only thing I have on here. So let's run some 3D Mark action. Now, one of the things I will say is that I don't know if the SSDs are really running at that crazy 5,000 megabyte per second thing that they claim. Some of my apps still take quite a while to load up, and this thing has 64 gigabytes of memory, so I might need to do some tuning on the RAID thing and see what exactly is the reason for the slowdown. But anyway, we'll run this. So I'm not going to run the whole thing, but what I will tell you is that the stock benchmark at 1080p has no slowdown at all. Now here's what I do want to show. I want to show you the fan noise, because this might be of concern of people, but it's not that different from what my Alienware was. I mean, any laptop that has two graphics cards, it's gonna make freaking noise, okay? The freaking GPU fans are almost the same size as the desktop hardware. So if you've ever had a desktop and you're basically sitting right next to you and you hear the fans come on, well, you're gonna hear the fans come on here. My biggest, I don't care as long as it doesn't break and it keeps running. I'm perfectly fine with it. And if you're buying a laptop like this, those things shouldn't really be bothering you, because the bottom line for this, and it does, is it powerful? Is it able to crank out the frames per second without any sluggishness? That is the most important thing when you're looking at a hardware this size. And you're not going to find a lot of laptops being able to do this. Yeah, not even regular PCs. So we really have desktop performance this time. And I would do a cycle, like I buy a gaming PC, and then 2 years later I upgrade my regular desktop PC, and then 2 years later I'll buy another gaming PC. So every 2 years or so I tend to upgrade, and even when I'm upgrading a laptop, usually what happens is the laptop I get matches the spec of the desktop I currently have. So like when I had my Alienware 18X back in 2011, it basically matched my my desktop, which was two of the 8800 GTXs. This was before the new revision of the GeForce line, and it was a match. And then 2 years later, I bought two 680 GTX CPUs, and that's what I have right now. And I looked at getting, I looked at the original MSI GT80 with the two 980Ms, and the performance of that actually was about the same as my desktop, which were two 680Ms in SLI. And while yes, it could have been an upgrade, I just didn't feel it. I was like, man, I'm doing a parallel upgrade, and yes, I was getting the performance of a desktop in a laptop, and it was pretty cool. I just didn't feel it. This, on the other hand, is clearly above and beyond even my desktop. I mean, it can kick the shit out of my desktop. There's no other way to say it. It's got 64 gigs of RAM, RAID 0 SSD, and it's running Firestrike like it's nothing. I mean, I haven't seen it stutter or slow down at all. And to me, that's the way these things should be. And these graphics cards are, and this is a 12X setup, so it's ready to go for DirectX 12 out of the box. I don't know how long that's going to be, because usually by the time they actually use the DirectX, they have like 2 other versions released. So it all depends on when the guys will release a game that uses it. But going back to that, I mean, there's some other things I haven't really touched upon. I mean, yes, you've got the USB 3.0 ports there, and you've got things over here, and this is interesting. It's called a hi-fi port. I've heard the headphones that are using hi-fi are pretty darn good, so might need to get me a pair of those just to see what this is all about. But you have like 2 of the regular things. I wonder to see if it's got some sort of emulator like Dolby Live or one of those other things that will put 5-channel surround output to a sound system that can do it. Because I was kind of hoping they'd have like 3 of these, so I could plug them into my regular surround sound that I have on my desktop. Because I'm thinking I'm gonna give that, do a hand-me-down on the desktop, give it to my sister, and let her have that desktop, because it's still not a bad desktop. 680 GTX SLI. Does it have a Blu-ray burner? Man, that's hot. That is hot. Can you hear it? It's definitely going. But other than that, let's see here. The TOS link is good. And I'll just say a few things about the display because I keep coming back to it. So I know there's a 4K thing going on, but the only thing that I would really want different in here is maybe a higher refresh rate, because I think it's just a 60 hertz. And the other thing that kind of bothers me is that, it's not really G-Sync, but like I said earlier, you're not going to be going lower than 60 frames per second or anything you play with. So, those are the really only things. Now, some people say, well, why not 4K? Well, I'll tell you why 4K. I have already seen things on a similar spec laptop that struggle even at 1080p. They've done benchmarks on this machine. Crysis is barely at 70, 80 frames per second minimum. And that's to me, that's the standard. It's not your average, it's what your minimum frames per second. I don't want to play anything that drops me below 60 frames per second. To me, that's just a fail. I don't like it. There's something wrong. Okay, you need to be able to meet a minimum of 60 frames per second in everything that you run. And you can do that at 1080. You cannot do that at 4K. And plus, 4K is really only fun when you've got a big monitor, man. I mean, I've seen some 4K stuff, and I'll be honest with you, it's really only fun when you've got a big ultra-wide, like a Predator X34 monitor. And I can hook it up to this. I can hook up a Predator X34 monitor, and I might watch some, you know, some of those movies that are ultra-wide screen, and I think that's going to look pretty nice on a Predator monitor. But, you know, I think that's... I think it's not ready. I mean, you're not there's hardly any content for it, and on a laptop, a 4K screen is just, you know, question your sanity, because hardly any content. And you know what most people are going to do with a 4K monitor? They're going to downcycle to 1080p. They're going to group the pixels together to get decent amount of benchmarks, because while it may be fast right now, I can tell you that you know, it's you know, more future-proof if you leave it at 1080. So when I run this, I get an invalid score. Time measurement inconsistent during benchmark result is not eligible Hall of Fame. Well, whatever. I ran this. I ran the fire starter, or what was that? The Fire Strike. We'll run this, and Fire Strike runs smooth as hell. Man, I remember when I ran this on my old Alienware, it was just chugging along, barely doing it, and I was like, there were points where I get 35, 34 frames a second. I was like, yeah, there you go. This was with two 6970M crossfires in an old Alienware computer. This thing doesn't miss a beat. I mean, it never goes below 60. There are points on this benchmarks when it's hitting 156 frames per second, and I was just like, holy hell, you know, this is ridiculous. So definitely a lot of power. Let's get back to the price, because I mean, I know I've been avoiding that subject. Yeah, this is almost a $5,000 laptop. I got mine from Amazon for $4,800. Now, I also have the Amazon store card, which gives me 5% off. So my effective price is probably around $4,500. Still a lot of money. Do I think it's worth it? No. I really, last year, if you told me to spend this much money, I'd tell you to go F yourself. But, you know, I'm in a point now where I need something like this, because I've traveled a lot more than I used to. I spend about 100 to 150 days out of the year outside of my house. So something that I can chug along is good. I mean, I'll tell you, TSA gives you a freaking pain in the butt when you try to scan this in. They're like, why the hell do you have a laptop so big? I'm like, I don't know, why's your ass so big? But, you know, doing that, I'm probably going to throw in jail. Being Middle Eastern doesn't help. So there are things to consider, especially when you turn around. You know, I'm not the kind of guy who's going to bring this out to a coffee shop or something like that. I'll take my little iPad on there. Have I done that before? Yeah, I took my Alienware 18X to a coffee shop. And, you know, despite what you think, people might think I'm obnoxious. Hell no. Everyone was coming like, dude, oh my God, I can't believe this. What the hell's going on? This is a freaking laptop? I'm like, yes, it is. This one with the dual power supplies is just pretty much makes it a no-go. Okay? You're gonna need a freaking 3-foot long thing just to house the power supply. So, yeah, it's not really something you can take to the coffee shop. And I don't expect you, but I'll tell you what it is. You go to a place, you go to a hotel room, you want to have something that's super powerful, this is the way to do it. And I've been doing that more and more every year. So I really think that's the way to go. Oh, one other thing. MSI does give you a nifty bag. I haven't opened it up yet, but I've seen this bag, and it's not bad. It will fit the laptop, and you get it for free. Another thing that you don't get with the Fang book. So, before you guys get that Fang book, literally consider all the things you do get with MSI, and I think ultimately you'll agree that the MSI is the way to go. But, you know, before I end this video, you know, here's Fire Strike running on it, and like I said, flawless, no stuttering, no anything. The fans are running. You can hear them. So the fans are chugging away. But what I like about this is that you know, I can run the latest benchmarks, and despite the fact that I'm still going to be playing an Unreal Engine 3 game, I know I'll be good to go for at least the next 2-3 years. You know, CPUs and stuff haven't really been upgrading, and this being the first time where the laptop's graphics are as good as the notebook, or as close as they can. So I really like that idea. Oh, one thing I will tell you, that if you do decide to get one, make sure you download this NVIDIA drivers up this, because I couldn't even run this properly with the earlier drivers. It would just sort of, you know, crash on me. So make sure you get the latest drivers. And you know, if you've been thinking about it, man, I say go ahead. I wasn't gonna wait till Black Friday to get these, but I've watched the GT80s, and they don't really have any sort of specials for this laptop. I think they pretty much know if you're stupid enough to buy something like this, that you're going to pay the price no matter what. But here's what I like. Look, Firestrike demo, what kind of frame seconds do you think I'm getting? You know, 50, 60? Wrong. 170, 180. That is just ridiculous. I love that. So, I know I'll be good to go for the next couple of years, because, you know, games always get more complicated, and you know, you don't want something that can just run the stuff decent for the technology today. You really want something that can give you get you by for at least a couple of years, and I think this machine certainly does it. What I would like to see the price point on this, I think ideally it should be around $3,500, $3,600. Now that's still a lot of money, but I think based on, you know, what the other technology is, that's fine. Because I mean, you can get a 1070 GTX 1070 laptop for $1,600. That's including the CPU, RAM, 16 gigs RAM, all that. So I don't believe this is as powerful as 3 of those laptops. You know, I think the difference between the GTX 1080 and the GTX 1070 in the mobile is only about $340, $350. I think the 1080 GTX 1080 is being marked up too much. A brand new one retail sells for $800, $850, but most of these manufacturers are marking that up to almost $1,100, which is the case here. So ideally, I think this laptop, as is with the 2-year warranty, should be for around $3,600, $3,700, and the two GTX 1070 should be around $2,600, $2,700. So that's what I think the price point should be. I currently think it is overpriced. It may come down in price. It already has dropped in price $200, but right now, if you are buying this, you are either have a lot of disposable income, you either are just an enthusiast, or, you know, you just said, F it, let me get the best thing I can get. And that's what happened to me. I mean, I would never really spend this type of money, but it was more of a F it type scenario where, you know, I just needed something new. My stuff was getting old. I just didn't care. I knew it was overpriced, and I know it was crazy high, but for once I wanted something that was the best, the best, the best. And will I do it again? I don't know. I probably won't, but you know, but now that I have it, yeah, I mean, I'm going to keep this and have fun with it, but I think the novelty is probably going to wear off in a month, more likely. And then I'm like, what the hell did I do? But before that time comes, and I'm going to enjoy it. But I will tell you this, compared to some of the other hobbies I am, because I'm into RC jets, and the amount of money you waste on that is far, far higher. I mean, you could have a bad landing, and, you know, there goes a couple grand right there. So, okay, so Firestrike ended. It had 19,592. I'm guessing that's a pretty decent score. I don't know, but I'll take it. So, anyway, that's my review of the MSI GT83VR. It certainly was longer than I anticipated, but if you are thinking about getting it, and you're the kind of gamer who just wants a lot of power and some mobility, I don't think you can go wrong with it. My biggest gripe is the power supply on it. So just watch out for that. Certainly not a perfect laptop. If I had to give it a rating out of 1 to 10, it's probably a solid 7. Really, for it to get a 10 out of 10, the power supply issue, they would have had to make a designed power supply that didn't have that dinky 2-into-1, and the monitor should have been probably G-Sync compatible, and also with a higher refresh rate. Maybe 4K, but that really wouldn't have mattered to me. But and lastly, the price. I think it is about $1,000 more than it should be. I really believe this is a $3,600 machine. I think that would have been the proper price point for me, as far as I'm concerned. I think $5,000 was just crazy, and only idiots like me would have paid it. But other than that, hey, I'm pretty happy with my purchase. All right.